If there's one thing the Germans are good at, it's classic rear drive performance cars. You know the usual suspects: BMW M3, Mercedes AMG C63, Audi RS4. These cars have been the poster children for everyday performance for decades now. But there's just one problem. You now need well north of $100,000 to purchase any of those three. But that doesn't mean you can't have something German, rear drive, and full of bells and whistles for under 100k. Take the BMW 330i. It's our reigning car sales car of the year champion, and it delivers all sorts of thrills and spills for $70,000. But it got us thinking, if you insisted on something with V6 power, there is a new kid on the block. It's not exactly German, but it does deliver European levels of performance. This is the Genesis G70.
Remember the Kia Stinger? Well, this is Hyundai's version of that same car. Actually, it's Hyundai's new luxury brand, Genesis. Most importantly, the G70 has a 3.3 litre twin-turbo V6, rear-wheel drive, and a limited slip diff. And it has the 330i squarely in its sights.
Talk about performance: 272 kilowatts, 0 to 100 in 4.7 seconds. And the best part about the Genesis G70 is that it feels inherently rear drive as well. In fact, it's a cinch to spin up the rear Michelin tyres. It's a car that's easy to drive at speed as well. It hunkers down through the corners, the seats really wrap around you in sport mode, and it piles on the kilometres just effortlessly.
The Genesis doesn't just look fast either. Sharp lines, a sumptuous interior, and the latest equipment and safety underline its appeal as a well-rounded luxury package. You even get 5 years warranty and 5 years free servicing included in the purchase price.
Now, the 1.7 tonne mass isn't actually the Genesis G70's biggest problem. It actually harnesses its weight quite well with a really fast steering whack and decent grip levels. And the Brembo brakes are quite powerful and really pull the car up strongly as well. For me, the biggest problem comes down to three things. The engine note doesn't have anywhere near the kind of emotion that a six-cylinder really should. Elsewhere, the steering lacks the intimate feel and feedback that you really want from a sports sedan. And finally, the gearbox. It doesn't have a strict manual mode. So when you're really asking for that intimate feedback from the car, to know exactly where the engine's at, it kind of struggles to give you that.
Steering feel? Now that used to be BMW's claim to fame. However, in recent generations, the 3 Series has veered somewhat off the path of its forebears. Until now.
Now happily, the G20 Generation 3 Series is a massive return to form. This is one of those cars that just telegraphs its movements on the road so succinctly. It's got beautifully tuned and weighted steering. It has a sporty yet compliant ride, and it oozes refinement and sophistication given that this is a junior executive sedan. Now yes, it's well down on power against the G70, but 190 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters from a 2-litre turbo petrol is certainly respectable.
Yes, it might be short on outright grunt, but a rear drive layout, fast thinking automatic gearbox, and 200 kilogram lighter curb mass mean the 330i is just as entertaining on a twisty road. And now's probably a good time to mention the 3 Series is also $10,000 less than the flagship G70 in price, though it does miss out on features found standard in the G70, including heated seats.
In many respects, this is the focal point of this comparison. Whether you want your European sedan to be all about sport or sports luxury. If it's the latter, well, I've got to say, the 3 Series leaves the G70 in the shade. It's got beautiful digital displays, really nice materials inside, and a level of finish that feels almost handcrafted. In fact, you could easily mistake this for an M3.
The 3 Series wins another important aspect of this comparison as well: practicality. Its boot is bigger and easier to access, ditto the rear seat space. And while the G70's infotainment is arguably more user-friendly, the 330i is the car you'd want to spend more time in. with better storage and some first-class touches dotted throughout.
Well, that was a lot of fun, and coming away from it, I've got to say, both these cars deliver genuine rear drive performance and European levels of luxury for roughly half the price of a BMW M3. As for which one does it better, well, I've got to say the G70 is probably a victim of its own timing, because while it did have the match of the previous generation 3 Series, the new G20 takes the game forward yet again, and it wins this comparison hands down.